So this is Channel 4 out of New York. NYPD struggles to find new recruits as retirements also rise. Let's all shed a tear for the NYPD. Calls for change in the New York City Police Department have echoed across the city these past few years, but the largest police force in the country is struggling to fill its ranks. With the application deadline to become a member of the NYPD extended until Tuesday, NBC New York's David Ushtri is asking the questions many are wondering. Who would want to become a police officer right now and why? So basically,
I mean, there's an argument sociopaths, but
right. So they're
but that's not what they're getting at.
Yeah. So they're saying but convincing other young people that is the challenge police departments across the country are facing, not just in New York City. There have not only been a plunge in applications, but there's also a surge in retirements. It's tough being a cop right now with all the rhetoric and things that may be happening throughout the country that have an effect on New York and how we want to do our job.
Yeah, and lie about Molotov cocktails flying out the windows. I mean, come on now.
Everyone make a frowny face.
Exactly.
Said Chief of Department Rodney Harrison. It's really hard. Just last month, the department instructed its officers not to take unscheduled days off ahead of the outcome of the Derek Chauvin trial, the former Minneapolis officer who was later convicted of murdering George Floyd. So why would anyone want to be a cop right now, Harrison says? To make a difference.
Oh, God.
Harrison, who has his own share of experience with policing in the Black community while growing up in Queens, says it's not easy to address these concerns. I got to talk to the young men and women out there about a lot of the good things that come about being part of the NYPD, he said, adding that there's more to being an NYPD officer than the uniform. I started my career in Queens in Astoria. One of the things I always share with the new police officers coming on is to try different parts of the police department.
This is like such propaganda right now. I can't.
You can go into become undercover, go into narcotics, go into aviation, go into computer crime. There are so many careers the NYPD has.
Oh, man.
Officer Matthew Jackson was one of the young men who heard Harrison's message. As a kid in Harlem, he was mentored by Chief Harrison. He admits battling anti-police hostility on the streets, but the positives are far greater. On and on. So
I cannot believe that they actually published this. This is propaganda. This is propaganda.
It's
It's cringe. This is so cringe. This is NBC. Yikes, NBC.
Yeah, so it's a real cringy story. I just really wanted to make fun of it.
Can we make fun of it? I mean, because the real story here would be like, okay, well, let's examine the reasons why they're having a hard time recruiting police officers. Isn't that actually the real story here? Not publishing propaganda to get people to see them differently than what they are?
Right.
Maybe talk about the corruptness in the NYPD. Maybe go interview Frank Serpico about his experiences. I mean, there's a million things you could talk about. There's reasons people don't want to join the police force. And that's why we only have sociopaths or like massive psychopathy involved with the guys that do. Look what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, some people, I think, don't want to join the police force because now it is clearer than ever, perhaps, that this is not a group of people that you want to join. So maybe people who would have joined with maybe good intention and later on been swept up in burned.
You know, it's I think part of the problem too is the way the police department and the police force has been sort of just glorified by Hollywood for decades too, right? The stories that they tell about cops, about the police force, they've glorified this and have told tales that aren't really accurate about what the police do and what they're actually like. They have made them heroes, so per se. Like I think a great example of this right now is Jamie McBride, who is a union boss here at the LAPD. He got into it with LeBron James about a tweet that he had said about, cops being murderers. And it was a perfectly acceptable tweet, but Jamie McBride went after him and even told the NBA that he should be disciplined for what he said, which is an outrageous thing. It's like, are you kidding me? Then you go look at who Jamie McBride is. He's been involved in plenty of officer-involved shootings, which is their parlance for we shot someone. His daughter has murdered, who is also Tony McBride. His daughter's Tony McBride. She has murdered somebody. But he has been hired by Hollywood on multiple occasions for movies. He's worked for Michael Bay multiple times. So this is a guy who is also a member of the Screen Actors Guild, right? And he's just a big Trump supporter. You go to his social media, although a lot of these things have been deleted now. There was a photo of him that I took a screenshot of where it said Donald Trump's life matters, except it was a BLM logo. So that's the kind of people we're dealing with, right? Yet Hollywood glorifies this and says that they're heroes and that it's a worthwhile endeavor and you'll be helping people, not, and then reality, they're out here, brutalizing and occupying populations with, military grade equipment. So now we have NBC being stenographers for the cops, which is just another form of propaganda.
Well, yeah, so they're making it out as if it's the people who are the problem. It's the protesters who are the problem. These mean people, these awful people. Oh, the cops are met with such opposition on the street. These meanies on the street, they're literally printing, as if these cops are 5-year-olds whining.
Right.
And it's sort of a weird article.
It's weird. It's just so disconnected from everything. And, there's really no excuse for it at this point. Here in 2021, there's no excuse. Especially, talk to any of the press that have worked a skirmish line, and they're going to have tales about how they've been brutalized by officers. As you know, I've been shot up by these guys a couple times. The LAPD broke my car window, intentionally shot my window out when I was covering a protest.
Well, in last year, I was
yeah, that's right,
by police and lost all my equipment and they, my phone.
I don't think it can be. How can you excuse this? How can you excuse this? And especially when they're trying to go after First Amendment rights, you cannot convince me at this point that isn't part of the deal, because we've seen. Look, it's bad enough. Don't get me wrong. I am not minimizing the way protesters are treated by the police. I am not doing that at all. I think it's horrific. The reason I am out there on the streets with these protesters is because I'm so appalled by how they're treated. And I want to make sure that other folks are able to see what happens, to really see what happens and not have this NBC article, thrown at them and think everything's fine, right? But I think that they absolutely do target the press. And I think, there's that night that I filmed the activist that was being beaten by a riot shield.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.